All right. So I'm really excited that we're gonna do it like this because I just want to jump in and just like throw a question at you, a topic, and then next week you can just throw a topic at me and we can talk about it for 15 minutes or whatever. Um,
Okay, cool.
and I'm gonna ask I'm gonna start with like the lightest of all topics ever,
Okay.
ever, ever. I'm joking,
Okay.
obviously, by saying that because this is not. Um, so today on Circulating Love, we're gonna talk about what is abolition to us.
Whoa, okay.
There we go.
Okay. What is abolition to me? Let's see. Okay. So first I go to like thinking systemically, like abolishing prisons, policing that system. But then I also like more deep, like more interpersonally, I think about not just abolishing, but the ways in which we can be in relationship with each other, be in community without without needing those systems and having ways of dealing with conflict, harm, outside of the like really punishing ways that we're used to systemically and the ways that we do that in our own relationships. What is abolition to you?
No, I mean, I really love what you said about, the way that we do something different, right? Like, and before I answer that question, I'm gonna say one thing. Like when we talked about like abolitionists back in the day, like slavery abolitionists, right? There are people who wanted to end slavery. Um, and like end slavery they did, but what was left after that is where we are right now. Like this like capitalist, exploitive, the prison system, policing, all that stuff. And so I feel like there was a piece missing of like what we break things down, but what are we building up, you know? And so it is like, what is the world that we want to see when this other world ends? It's like the before and the after. Like, are we ready for the after? If this breaks down, what are we going to do? And so it is. It's the conflict navigation, it's the conversations, it's the practice, it's the borrowing things. It's mutual aid, it's all of this. And I feel like you can't just do one without the other. Because what happens if we, burn down a system and then there isn't a new way of surviving? And so we fall back into these old habits.
And that's the question I feel like that people often bring up. Like, well, what are you going to do about murders? What are you
Hmm.
going to do about sexual abuse? Like, what do you do in those situations where you think about people that, in general, the society we've considered disposable as a culture, um, and we throw away into cages?
Hmm. Hmm. And so like long game, like long term, we like fix the world and these terrible, horrible things don't happen as often, right? Um,
Yeah.
but okay, so surprisingly, and I feel ashamed to admit this on like recording, and it is what it is. But and I'll work on my shame later. But I watch some of these like propaganda shows, right? That I'm aware are propaganda, and I'm like, oh, you got this fine man to show up and say this, saving the world, blah blah blah. But the ones that I like are actually the ones that say, okay, was, this is what happened in their childhood that led them to be this way,
Hmm.
right? And not that I agree with so we slammed 14 people on the way to go get this person and now they're going to be in jail for the rest of their lives. So that's not what I believe we should do. But like at the end of the day, there are people who make bad choices. There are people who hurt people. Like there's a lot of fucked up shit that happens in the world. I have been, victim slash survivor of lots of fucked up shit in the world, right? And I want to look at what were the things that happened that got them there and hope that we can change that. So like there's less people like that. Um, and And I think a lot about Richie Reseda, prison feminism success stories. He talks a lot about like a lot of the big culture things, P. Diddy, like R. Kelly, stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, cool, bro. Like if you had millions of dollars, your behavior right now would get you in that same spot. Just letting you
Mhm.
know, like maybe you don't know, but like you're just like Timu P. Diddy because like you don't have a lot of money, right? And of course he says it in a whole different way. I don't think he ever called anybody Timu P. Diddy, but I feel like now I need to start calling people that. But anyway, I think that's the important thing to think of is that like we can look at the big issues, but in reality, on a small scale, we're all doing the same. Or, the royal we, like we're all kind of existing in the same way, unless we're intentionally trying not to, because it's actually
Mhm.
easier to exist that way.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's what we know. I mean, yeah, like I think about ways I've been punished in my life for things that I did, come in the school system, being expelled and suspended for things, and um, yeah, it's just at home. It feels like the way we really know how to is to like stop behavior is to just try to control people.
Hmm.
And that's really like what I feel like a lot of the systems are built on, the systems in our society, but also just like within us is about like trying to control ourselves, trying to control other people's behaviors, um, in ways that really are just, again, not to use the same term, but like just policing what we do, putting limits around ourselves and others instead of like having building up tools and resources and having resources available so that people are resourced enough to be able to be in conflict. Like you need to be able to be like well enough to deal with conflict in a relationship. Otherwise you can't handle it. And to be well enough, you have to have enough. You have to have enough. And there's like enough in this fucking world, but it's not dispersed that way.
Wait, expand on that. Like to be well enough, you have to have enough, and there's like enough what?
Like you have to be able to rest. You have to be able to like not be stressing all the fucking time about paying your bills or having enough food or how you're going to get somewhere or whatever, all the things that we stress about, and people stress about. And
Hmm.
if you don't have enough spaciousness in your life to let that go and be able to just like rest and regulate, like you won't be able to handle conflict in a
Hmm.
healthy, reparative way. You're just gonna flip the fuck out or walk the fuck out. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, and what you said about having what we need, at the end of the day, I feel, everyone's behaviors are always trying to get a need met, no matter what it is. They're trying to get some sort of need met, and the tactics of how they get that need met is where we disagree a lot of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when, oh God, and I've seen this a lot, in movement spaces, you know, because the focus is on for so long we didn't talk about all these like issues and people were able to get away with a lot of things, and then we swung to this other side of like punish everybody, right? Like everyone is so fucked up. And I saw this it was a Facebook post that like Facebook memories from like years ago, and it was during, a local explosion of, the Me Too movement, right? Where there were some men who were like very much like, okay, I want to learn. I'm sorry I did this. Like, I want to learn. And there were some men who were like, well, you shouldn't have had your titties out. And I wouldn't, and I was like, okay, so like there's a difference between the men who want to learn and the don't have your titties out men. Like, let's be willing to support and be with, you know, people were like, nah, fuck them all. They all should have known better. Like, da 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 da. And I was like, okay, well, I don't think so, because like titties out man is like now out here like destroying, other people's lives someplace else,
Hmm.
and the other man wants to be better, but is now like, well, I can't be better. I better not be vulnerable anymore because now I'm going to lose everything. Like I thought maybe being vulnerable, and then every other man who saw vulnerable man is like, oh, I can never admit to anything because I'm just going to lose everything and I'm going to get attacked. And like, oh my God, what do I do? And the post that I had posted about in that same way was like, okay, so like at what point are we gonna have a reckoning for like racist white women?
Mm.
But then because like the white women that I have organized with, and even I mean, white men are different, maybe just I'm not around as many white men, but like the way that they have like said really fucked up violent things, like grab me to tell me like I'm on your side or your people just don't vote or like all these things, like I have the empathy and like my desire is for them to change and be different, not to cancel them, not to throw them into the prison, not to, whatever, whatever. And, racial violence and sexual violence, as someone who's been a victim or survivor of both, it's like they're fucked up in many different ways and also can be similar in many ways. And so it's just interesting to me that, we jump to this any man who's ever done anything wrong needs to, burn and die in hell, and it's like, well, actually, I want men who have done wrong things, anyone who's done wrong things, to understand what they did and change their behavior. And to me, that's abolition is holding the space for people who've done things wrong as a community, not like I need to go support the person who did something wrong to me, but like knowing that there's a community and that there's resources and that there's patience and tolerance to help that person be a better person. Because throwing people in cages for the rest of our lives is not gonna do anything.
Yeah, and like, to your point, you're talking about like white women in organizing spaces, and I'm like thinking about, well, the needs that I was talking about, right? And so being able to, in this situation, tolerate the fact that you're being racist, like tolerate the fact that you have your own internalized racism and sense of white supremacy and sense of entitlement to say whatever you're saying, and like you have to be able to and tolerate the shame, the discomfort, all the feelings that come up to actually be able to engage in taking accountability and hopefully some kind of reparative action.
Hmm.
um yeah, and I feel like, yeah, that's a lot of white people are not good at that. And yeah, there's not a lot of spaces that I think help people move through whatever their shame is about their own
Hmm.
sense of you know superiority or whatever. And I think similarly about, well, I'll pause there for a second.
No, no, keep going.
Um, like I think about I watched this interview with Alok, and um, they were talking about like being trans, and they were talking to like a couple cis people who were like fucked up their pronouns, and they were having this like, and the cis guy was like, I fucked up your pronouns, and hopefully we're okay with cursing on here because I've done it several times now.
Oh, me too.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, okay, great. And he was talking about like, and I feel really bad about that. I like, and they had this like open and honest, genuine conversation. There was a bunch of other conversations too, but there was something about witnessing the vulnerability of being like, "Ooh, I did this thing. I know that it hurt you, and I'm like I want to own up to that and have this like and say that to you. That was just, it's so, for me, is so moving and so powerful. And I feel like part of why I wept was I was like, I have so many family members I wish would just have a fucking real conversation with me, or would just be able to be like, sorry about that, I see you, or I'm trying to see you, or whatever. Like, um, but I feel like we need to uplift more the messiness of hum- being human
Hmm.
and making mistakes and
Hmm.
being in relationship with each other. And
Mhm.
instead of like being perfectionistic and like you're a good white person if whatever, if you, I don't know, go to a surge meeting or have a Black Lives Matter sign in front of your house or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that that is so much of the system, right? That we are again the royal we, um, like we are afraid to lose things when we admit we're wrong because we're in a system, you know, that punishes us, takes things away, like that is very unlikely. I mean, not to go down this whole road, but I work with some organizations, and they want to. I talk a lot about abolitionist conflict navigation. I say, and like you're in a nonprofit, and there's like rules you got to follow, and I'm never going to help you create something that like takes away somebody's rights to do a thing, and also like that's part of why I believe that we actually can't do what we want to do within a nonprofit. I've been in spaces where folks have said, I'm not going to go through a conflict navigation circle like with the team because like that's actually my personnel record and you can't talk about my personnel record in front of everybody else. I'll sue you. It's HR. And I'm like, I mean, okay. And the lawyer was like, yeah, they could sue you. I'm like, but like we agreed that we were gonna like reflect on what went well and what didn't go well. And what didn't go well is that they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so I was like, okay, maybe we can't do this in a nonprofit dynamic, like abolition, like we need to come up with different rules. We need to come up with different agreements and yeah, I've been in spaces, people are always like, I hope you don't have to call the police ever, and I've been in spaces where, legally there's nothing else that I can do but take someone to family court to protect my child, for example. That could be a whole other conversation, right? But, you know, I don't believe that that is the best way, but there was really no other way, no other system to make sure that things were being taken care, taken seriously, So, yeah, for me, abolition is creating the system where, yes, people aren't getting hurt people, so they're not hurting people, but that when hurt inevitably happens, because also we're human, that there's a system to support someone in being better and moving forward and learning from what they did, you know, and that is not just centered on punishment, whether it's prisons or, like abolish the police is like the cop in our head too, this whole like I want to see them burn. Okay, cool. But like, does that benefit the long term? So yeah, building up, not just tearing down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you were speaking earlier about canceling, the whole cancel culture and canceling people, and I think about how difficult that makes it to build something different, because then we just further the isolation pockets that we're already in. And um we already have that so much, even just in online spaces, so thus in our heads, like where whatever your algorithm is feeding you, um you're in this really like isolated, um I don't know what I would tunnel or something of like information. And then also you're receiving that information in isolation, which I think
Yeah,
is the thing we don't often think about. But like, even if you and I are sitting in a room together, if I'm scrolling on my phone and I see some horrific violence, I'm witnessing that alone. I'm
yeah,
the only one in that moment having that experience. And then next, getting some relationship content, because that's the next thing that I'll get on there, like couples therapy thing. Um, and like, but I'm the only I'm the only one going through that. My nervous system is having this whole experience. There's all these like ways that we are so isolated in
hmm
our lives, and then also in the world
yeah,
communities.
yeah. Oh, any last thoughts? Or was that your last
Um,
thought?
I think we should talk more in the future about like how do we do this?
Hmm.
How do we build the systems
Yeah,
that we want to see?
yeah, let's do it.